My rich father mocked my job, then needed me to bail him out. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. I'm Evan, 30, the guy in the back of the ambulance who checks pulses in supermarket parking lots and holds hands in traffic jams until the morphine kicks in. My salary wouldn't impress a room, but my patient's eyes do. I live in a rented walk-up that smells like laundry detergent and old coffee. It's small and honest. I learned long ago that honesty is a better pillow than silk. Richard, my father, built an empire of car dealerships and side ventures, glossy showrooms, charity galas, the smile with too many teeth. For years he called my work sirens and stretchers, as if dignity had a price tag. He measured love in dividends. He measured me against men who owned things. I kept showing up to 12-hour shifts and making rent on purpose, because there's a kind of wealth in sleeping through the night. 2 nights ago, after midnight, his driver left him outside my building like a package nobody wanted. Richard reeked of cologne and failure. He clutched a leather folder like it should pray for him. "Evan," he said, voice frayed. "I need a small bridge, just cash flow. 48 hours. I laughed before I could stop myself. The man who sneered at my overtime pay wanted a bailout from my savings account. But something in his eyes wasn't theatrical. It was hollow. He kept staring past me, at the hallway smoke detector blinking every 8 seconds. My hands did what they do. They checked the tremor in his fingers, the pulse thudding too fast. He wasn't dying. He was cornered. "If I can just tide things over," he whispered. "No one has to know." My job trains me to hear what people don't say. I heard. Leans, calls unanswered, a cliff edge disguised as a bridge. I stood back and felt the old ache of being the only one in the room who believed in rules. Maybe I could float him a week. Maybe I could buy peace. I told him I'd think until morning. He nodded like a man bargaining with weather. I made tea, put a blanket over his shoulders, and watched the leather folder sit on my table like an accusation. Outside, a siren wailed south on Riverside and faded into the city's dark. And I realized he feared sunlight more than bankruptcy itself. When people picture wealth, they imagine safety, gates, lawyers, a name on a building. When I picture it, I see a crystal punch bowl from a gala where my father joked that heroism is for men without portfolios. I was 10 the first time he brought me on a showroom tour. He pressed a chrome key fob into my palm and said, "Sell the dream, never the car." I didn't understand that dreams with financing can trap you longer than nightmares. Mom left when I was 14, an exit without a note, but with a legal envelope. The settlement bought her silence and a small condo in Sarasota. Richard bought a second wedding and a third dealership. He used to stand in front of the mirror practicing speeches, rehearsing a version of himself that never coughed or apologized. The house staff floated like ghosts through rooms we weren't allowed to sit in. At family dinners, he'd ask what I did that day and perform a little pity smile when I said I'd learned CPR or logged 3 transports. "Cute," he'd say, "but you'll want something scalable." When I passed my paramedic exam, he sent a bouquet to the station with a card, "Proud of your hobby." The guys laughed, then got quiet. It was easier to laugh than to explain fathers who measure sons by distance from themselves. Lena, my older sister, learned the currency early, approval. She managed Dad's charity events, the ones with photographers and orchids. She bought into the myth because it fed her rent and her fear. In June, at a donor brunch, Richard clinked a glass and told the table I'd graduated from rolling stretchers to driving them. The table chuckled. "One day he'll come work with his old man," he added, like a prophecy. I excused myself and stood by the caterers, pretending to check a text while my face cooled. That fresh wound still burned when he showed up at my door begging for a bridge. But even before that night, the cracks were there. The driver's hours cut, a holiday bonus skipped, a tax letter peeking from a drawer. Last month, he told me in front of Lena, "You save lives. I save futures." And I finally asked, "Whose future?" His eyes didn't blink when he answered, "Mine." The first red flag came as a voicemail on a Tuesday morning at 6:11 a.m. before my shift. A polite woman from First Horizon Bank asked to confirm a maturity extension on a line of credit ending in 4921. I don't have lines of credit ending in anything. I saved the number, thumb paused, then swiped it away like lint. Not my circus. Next was the certified letter that arrived at my apartment by mistake, addressed to Richard but sent to my building's management office, where his name still hangs on a donor plaque. The envelope wore a yellow sticker, Notice of Lien. I carried it like a hot skillet and texted Lena, Looks important. She told me to bring it to the house and not make drama. I drove up the long circular drive and found the painters gone, the fountain off. But inside, the music still played. Richard held court with a distributor in the study, loud as ever, promising volume discounts and July numbers like a rocket. He was in a navy suit that fit like a secret. I handed him the letter. He slid it under a magazine without glancing and asked if I wanted coffee. Looks official, I said. Everything looks official if you stamp it, he answered, grin sharp. You know, your brother-in-law says EMTs are just Uber with lights. He let it hang, then clapped my shoulder like it was all fun. The distributor laughed too hard. Driving back to the station, I told myself wealthy people get weird mail the way we get pizza coupons. People sue them for sport. They pay retainer fees the way we buy bus passes. On scene that afternoon, a woman with a blood pressure of 90 gripped my wrist and whispered, "Don't let me die," and I remembered that paperwork doesn't bleed. Still, that night, a different voicemail waited. This one from a payroll company about staffing adjustments at the dealership group. We'll need authorization to finalize the layoffs. Layoffs and rockets don't go together. I stood at my sink, hands on the counter, hearing his laugh at that brunch and wondering when swagger becomes costume. I replayed the message until the words sounded like static. Escalation always arrives in a tuxedo. At the Chamber of Commerce dinner, Richard worked the room like a preacher selling redemption. Lena adjusted centerpieces and whispered cues into the ear of a volunteer. I'd come as a courtesy, wearing the only suit I own. When the MC thanked sponsors, Richard glided on stage and did his greatest hits. The bootstrap story, the community love, the joke about my ambulance hobby. Evan still insists on riding in the back of trucks, he said, smiling at the 100-round tables. One day he'll want a real office. Laughter came in waves. I felt every decibel in my molars. Aunt May sat near the back, hands folded, eyes flat. Afterward she hugged me and said, "Pride is loud when truth is thin." The night ended with a photo line. Richard pulled me into a shot, his arm heavy. "Solidarity," he whispered. "Family first." The photographer's flash bleached us both, and for a second I saw a stranger wearing my father's suit. I went home and tossed the tie on a chair. At 10:38 p.m., someone buzzed. A man in a windbreaker held a thin envelope. "Process server," he said. "Are you Evan Lewis?" The petition inside named Richard as defendant in a complaint by a floorplan lender called Harbor Financial. The words default, covenant, and accelerate glared like warning lights. I looked up at the man. "Wrong apartment," I said. "He doesn't live here. His registered mailing address is still the foundation office next door," he said, nodding toward the plaque. "We tried there." He shrugged. "Tell him to call his lawyer." After he left, I read it twice, lips moving, like we do when we want the page to change. The amounts were not small. $2, $3 million on one line, $840,000 on another. Harbor demanded immediate payment or surrender of collateral. Collateral meant cars. Cars meant showrooms. My phone chimed with a news alert. A short blog post about rumors of liquidity pressure at Lewis Auto Group. A blocked caller purred. "Do you know where your father sleeps?" I drove to the mansion the next morning and found the gate code changed. Security recognized me, then hesitated and called inside. "Mr. Lewis is unavailable," a new voice said, warm like a hotel receptionist. "Please make an appointment." I texted Lena, and she answered with bubblegum words. "Give Dad space. Image management. Stop feeding gossip." When I finally reached her, she was at the office, hair pinned, voice clipped. "Blogs feed on smoke," she said. "If you repeat it, you make fire." "There's a lawsuit," I said. "Harbor Financial. Process server visited me." "Why me?" "Because you live next to the foundation," she said. "They're vultures. Dad is negotiating a restructure. This is how business works." "They call me at night asking where he sleeps." I said, "That's not normal." "Nothing about Dad's life is normal," she answered, then softened. "Evan, please. He's under pressure. Don't embarrass him." I pictured the way she used to bandage my knees when we were kids, how she practiced gratitude the way Richard practiced applause. We both learned to ignore the price tag on calm. Aunt May called at lunch. Tea, she asked. Her cottage smells like lemon oil and newspapers, the opposite of Richard's cologne. I showed her the harbor complaint and the lien notice. She read quietly, lips tightening. He taught the world to clap at the wrong times, she said. You can't teach the world to stop overnight. Do I help him? I asked. Help the truth, she said. Not his performance. There's a difference. That evening my supervisor offered me overtime and I took it, because steady money calms the mind. Still, everywhere I looked, I saw cracks. A dealer plate in a pawn shop window, a vendor tweeting about unpaid invoices, a receptionist in tears on the sidewalk. At 9:02 p.m., Richard texted 3 words, "Don't contact Lena." Then my key card for the house app blinked invalid. A family group chat went silent except for Lena posting a photo of tulips from a donor, caption gratitude. I typed and deleted a dozen replies. I thought about the people I'd lifted onto stretchers whose families still argued about parking while I compressed a chest. Pressure exposes structure. Ours was decorative. I stared at the screen, wondering what I'd be cut out of next. Suspicion needed very little oxygen. The oxygen arrived as a second phone, buzzing in Richard's jacket I'd mistakenly grabbed from his driver's back seat when I helped Aunt May carry groceries to her car. It buzzed with a name I didn't recognize. Marina, offshore. I let it ring out and stared at the lock screen. 6 missed calls, a Gmail notification from an account named Lewis. Bridget Proton Mail. Calm. Subject line, default notice, Trident Capital. I put the jacket back and drove to my apartment, hands sweating on the wheel like I'd stolen something. At my kitchen table, I opened the harbor complaint again, then searched the county recorder's site. There it was, a UCC filing from Trident Capital, dated March 3rd, listing personal guarantee by Richard Lewis on a $1. $2 million merchant cash advance. Repayment structure, daily debits. I knew enough to know daily debits means bloodletting. The burner email, if it was his, bothered me most. Richard doesn't do privacy. He does theater. Proton Mail is for people who expect the curtain to drop. I tried the obvious password, Richie1962, and failed. I tried Dealflow, his dog's name Bentley, and his favorite golf course initials. No luck. I closed my laptop feeling like a burglar and worse, a rookie. At 7:15 the next morning, I stopped by the bank before shift. The teller, a man who has seen every kind of face that walks in with a check, said I'd need an appointment for account-level concerns. I said I just wanted a certified copy of a lien notice I believed had been sent to the foundation's mailbox. He stared at the harbor letterhead and sighed. You're not the first this week, he said. First what? Family member asking what a cross-default clause means, he said, then wrote a name and date on a card. Asked for the bank officer at 3 p.m. I called out of my afternoon overtime and decided I would follow the buzzes and filings wherever they led. Someone had turned my father into a storm of paper and phones, and I promised myself I'd move as quietly as a paramedic in a nursery. The bank officer at the bank spoke in patient sentences, the way I do with anxious families. Cross-default means if he misses one obligation, others can demand payment immediately, she said, tapping a printout where dates lined up like bad luck. March 3rd, Trident. April 12th, First Horizon Extension. May 5th, Harbor Warning. June 18th, a second merchant lender called Blue Lark. It's a pattern, she said. Cash advances to cover cash advances. Could he fix it? I asked. If he had collateral not already pledged, she said, eyes apologetic. Or a friend with deep pockets. I wrote every date in a pocket notebook I usually use for vital signs. After the bank, I bought coffee for his former assistant I found on LinkedIn, who'd lasted 6 months. In the cafe, she checked the door twice before speaking. He lives on a stage, she said. He had me schedule donor lunches where he paid with cards from Shell LLCs, Westport Holdings, Marina West, Ben & Equity. He'd transfer funds minutes before the check. She slid a photo across the table, a whiteboard from his office, time-stamped March 16th, with arrows from dealer floor plan to private bridge to casino. She grimaced. He said it was a joke, but the courier runs to Newport were not jokes. I compared her timestamps with the geotags on Richard's public posts. Golf at Stone Ridge on March 16th, while his board read casino, a board meeting on May 5th while Harbor emailed default language. Stories have rhythms. His had 2 time signatures. At the station that night, Between calls, I pulled Department of State records and found the LLCs. Westport Holdings had a registered agent service and a mailbox in Delaware. Marina West listed a manager named R. Lewis and an address that matched a rented condo by the river. Rent paid by cashier's checks. The outline of a double life sharpened like a bruise. In a public court docket, I found a subpoena to a credit union for ATM footage from June 3rd and June 7th. Withdrawals of $4,000 and $3,500, just under the limit that triggers extra paperwork. The location sat 2 miles from a private poker club people pretend is a social charity. I pinned the addresses on my phone map. I wondered who would still clap when the lights brightened and the mask slipped. The mini twist was not noble. It was paperwork. The bank officer called back with something she thought I should see. In a secure room, she laid out a copy of a guarantee to Blue Lark, dated June 1st, bearing 3 signatures. Richards, a co-guarantor listed as L. Lewis, and an entity called the Lewis Family Foundation. The L. Lewis was not Lena's neat slant. It was an awkward imitation. And the foundation charter, which I'd read online, explicitly barred using assets for private debt. This isn't why, I said, more to myself than to her. This is what. She nodded. And this, she added, sliding over a filing from the Sarasota County clerk. A home equity line opened against a condo on Bayshore Drive. Mom's condo. Issued through a marital trust Richard still controlled in part because the final transfer had never been recorded. The date, May 28th. The amount, $250,000. The disbursement, cash. I sat back, breathing carefully. He had reached into the past and pawed through her safety. Lena's event company, which Richard had helped set up to funnel gala payments, also appeared on a vendor list for Marina West, consulting services, unpaid invoices totaling $47,800. If Blue Lark called those invoices fraudulent transfers, Lena could be dragged into the mess. I called Aunt May and told her I had to show someone. At her kitchen table, among teacups and old recipes, I arranged copies. The guarantee, the condo line, the LLC printouts, ATM withdrawals, the whiteboard photo. This is not a stumble, she said softly. This is choreography. He forged Lena, I said, saying it tasted like pennies. He rated Mom. Aunt May lifted the guarantee to the light. He thinks paper is a costume, she said. But under bright lights, costumes show seams. I stared at the names and dates until the page blurred like rain on glass. If Blue Lark accelerated and Harbor followed, trustees could freeze accounts, and Mom's condo, her little slice of quiet and pelicans, could become a bargaining chip in a fight she never chose. I wrote a single sentence in my notebook, protect what he didn't earn. Then I added a second, don't let Lena drown for his storm. And then my phone lit with Lena's name and the words, we need to talk. Lena's message was 4 words. Please fix this first. We met at a small park by the river, away from the mansion's cameras. She wore sunglasses on a cloudy day. He's drowning, she said. He's proud. If we can patch the hole, the boat won't sink. The hole is the boat, I said. I showed her the guarantee with her faked signature. She inhaled like the air had teeth. I didn't sign that, she said. I swear. I know, I said. But the lender doesn't. Aunt May suggested we speak to someone precise. Enter Carter, William Carter, 50-something, a lawyer who has sent me Christmas cards since he got Aunt May out of a property dispute 15 years ago. In his office, he arranged the papers with a surgeon's touch. You need 3 things, he said. Authenticated statements, time-stamped communications, and a record, ideally a recorded admission. In this state, single-party consent allows it. We opened a folder of bank statements Aunt May had kept from a joint account the foundation used for reimbursements. Transfers to Marina West jumped from $3,000 a month to $18,000 in April, $22,500 in May. Carter underlined the jumps. Pattern matters, he said. He drafted a letter to Blue Lark denying Lena's guarantee with a specimen of her true signature. And the call? I asked. He'll call, Carter said. People like your father want to narrate their own rescue. I bought a small recorder the size of my thumb and practiced questions in the mirror. Who signed? Where did the condo money go? Why Proton Mail? I felt like I was rehearsing CPR on my own family. What if we help first? Lena asked. Then confront when he's stable. Helping him hide evidence makes us part of the story, I said. We agreed on a plan. Gather proof, keep Mom safe, notify the bank about the foundation rules, and, if needed, trigger a meeting where Richard would have to answer with other ears in the room. Carter's brow furrowed. If he mentions forgery, don't interrupt, he said. Silence invites truth. I drove home rehearsing silence like a new language. At 11:07 p.m., my phone vibrated with Richard's name. I let the call go to voicemail and texted back, "Dinner tomorrow?" He replied with the address of a steakhouse he uses for victories. Lena came, brittle and composed. Aunt May insisted on joining, a calm anchor in a storm you can't see until you're in it. Richard arrived late, perfume of money and fear. He kissed Lena's cheek, ignored Aunt May's extended hand, and gave me the showman's smile. "My son," he said loudly enough for nearby tables. "Doing God's work in a van." He ordered a bottle older than me. "We should talk about Blue Lark," I said. His eyes flicked, then smoothed. "Parasites," he said. "Short-term cash that ran long. It happens." He speared his steak. "What matters is family unity." "You forged my name," Lena said quietly. The table went still. For a second I saw the boy in him who'd learned that volume beats facts. Then the mask slid back. "I authorized a staffer," he said. "We'll correct it. We don't need to be dramatic." He leaned toward me. "You, of all people, understand urgency. We just need a bridge. 50, maybe 60. We can wrap the condo line under a new instrument and keep the wolves from the door." "Mom's condo is not your ATM," Aunt May said. Her voice could cut rope. Richard exhaled through his nose. "You ungrateful women love your little rules," he said, then switched to the tone that used to buy him applause. "Evan, you have a pension. Your credit is clean. Lend me your name, and I'll make you whole." My chest tightened the way it does before a bad call. The old reflex to help flared. He reached for my wrist like a patient who doesn't know he's bleeding. A couple at the next table watched us over creme brulee, pretending not to. Aunt May's hand covered mine. "Breathe," she said. "Heroes don't launder lies." Richard smiled wider. "Be a hero," he whispered. "For once in your life, be useful." I almost nodded before remembering who needed saving here. I thought of my patients who say, "Save me," and mean, "Make me honest with my body." I thought of Mom's condo, sunshine on a small kitchen table, safe because it was small. And then the waiter delivered a folded note addressed to me, in Carter's hand. The note said, "Harbor officers agreed to meet tomorrow, 10 a.m. Conference room B. Bring Richard. Bring Lena." Carter's signature coiled under the time like a fuse. I slid the note under my plate and told Richard we should talk to the bank to end the gossip. He straightened like a man hearing good news through his own translation. "Of course," he said. "Optics." That night, I texted Lena the time and sent her a photo of the forged guarantee beside her driver's license. She replied with a single word, "Coming." Aunt May baked muffins because that's how she armors people. She pressed a paper bag into my hand in the morning and said, "Sugar is not medicine, but it helps us sit still." Conference room B had a screen, a long table, and no patience. The bank officer sat with a compliance officer and a man from Harbor. Carter laid out our stack: statements, LLC filings, the foundation charter, Lena's exemplar signature, the Trident daily debits, and a notarized letter from Mom's Sarasota attorney asserting the helic was unauthorized under the settlement. Richard opened with charm. "This is a misunderstanding stirred by jealous competitors," he said. "I intend a global workout and will provide additional collateral shortly." He smiled at me as if we were co-conspirators. Carter pressed play on a small speaker. It was last night's voicemail from Richard to me before dinner, which I hadn't answered. "We'll paper whatever's needed," Richard's voice said. "If Lena won't sign, we'll use the stamp." The room's air thinned. Richard's hand went for the speaker. Carter moved it away with 2 fingers. "We'll also be filing a fraud alert with Blue Lark," Carter said calmly, "and notifying the Attorney General's office about the foundation misuse." Richard's smile tried to hold. It trembled like a bridge in wind. Lena stared at the guarantee, then at him. The Harbor representative folded his hands. "Mr. Lewis, we'll require immediate assurance or repossessments begin Thursday," he said. Richard turned to me, voice low enough to be almost human. "Is this your doing?" I said nothing and watched the light find the seams of his costume. And then he pointed at me and told the room I destroyed our family. "He's making this up," Richard said, palms slicing the air. My son hates success. He wants me small so he can feel big. He reached for Lena's arm, and she pulled away like from a hot pan. Carter connected his laptop to the screen. Receipts, he said simply. The slideshow was not dramatic. It was dates and amounts. March 3rd, Trident Capital, $1. 2M Advance. Daily ACH debits beginning March 6th at $6,300. March 16th. ATM withdrawal $4,000 near Hudson Social Club. May 5th. Harbor default notice. May 28th. Helic draw $250,000 from Bayshore Drive Trust. June 1st. Blue Lark guarantee with L. Lewis signature misaligned and inconsistent with known exemplars. June 7th. ATM withdrawal $3,500. June 18th. Blue Lark demand letter threatening repossession of inventory within 72 hours. Motive? The harbor representative asked. I looked at Richard because I wanted, stupidly, for him to tell the truth. He smirked. Deals stretched, he said. I pressed, they pressed back. That's business. The bank officer cleared her throat. And the casino notes? Stress relief, Richard said. Self-care. He laughed alone. Aunt May opened the paper bag and pushed a muffin toward him like a peace flag. Addiction hides behind big words, she said. Ego too. Carter clicked again. An email from Lewis. Bridget Proton Mail. Calm. Appeared, forwarded from a vendor. We can do the guarantee, optically, if needed. The reply. Proceed. Single-party consent, Carter said, and played a brief recording I'd captured in the hallway after dinner, Richard's voice muttering to his driver. If Evan won't help, I'll make him help. Richard lunged for the laptop. The harbor representative stood. Enough, he said. This is an asset review, not theater. Richard finally screamed what he'd been implying for years. You think your little rescues make you better than me. I didn't answer because I was busy watching the last part of him fall, the part that still believed applause could erase withdrawals. And then the courthouse clerk called Carter's phone with a case number for fraud. Fallout doesn't care about your calendar. Harbor trucks showed up Thursday with 2 men and a list, and by afternoon the flagship showroom looked like a stage after closing night. Open spaces where shiny things used to be. The harbor representative's office emailed a repayment plan that read like a sentence. Richard refused to sign and called 3 reporters. Only one printed his quote, and even that ran under the headline. Dealer group faces seizures after default. Blue Lark served notice on the forged guarantee and, after Carter's letter, quietly shifted to further investigation, which is legal talk for we're not done with you. Mom Sarasota attorney filed an emergency motion to freeze any draw on the Helic. The judge granted it with a one-line order that felt like a seatbelt clicking. Lena stopped getting payments from the event company, and vendors called her phone asking when Mr. Lewis would make good. She started selling dresses from her gala closet to pay her rent. She also started attending meetings in a church basement where coffee tastes like hope. I drove her there 3 nights in a row and sat in the back, a visitor among the brave. At work, my captain asked if I needed time off. I told him I needed 12-hour shifts to shut my brain up. Then a call came in, man down at a dealership parking lot. Different chain, same fluorescent lights. I knelt on asphalt where men bargain about monthly payments and counted compressions. You breathe. You count. You keep time for a heart that forgot how. Richard left me 2 voicemails a day calling me Judas and Saint, sometimes in the same minute. He told Lena I had aligned with enemies. He told Aunt May she'd poisoned his son. A donor board voted to suspend the foundation. Cameras lingered at the mansion gate, then got bored and left. Without applause, Richard sounded smaller on the phone. I missed a meal, then 3, and my hands started to shake at stoplights. And then an unmarked envelope slid under my door with photos from a casino. The photos were grainy but cruel. Richard at a blackjack table on June 7th, the night of the $3,500 withdrawal, face lit by casino light. He looked rapt, like a person praying to a screen. I took them to Carter, who filed them in a folder labeled credibility. This isn't to shame him, he said. It's to protect the people he could still harm. I made appointments I should have made earlier. A therapist who speaks in practical steps. A credit counselor who explained what co-signing means in simple math. A meeting with my captain to map my shifts around court dates. I started running 3 mornings a week, the kind of slow run that teaches your breath to stay. I cooked on Sundays, labeling containers so my tired self wouldn't choose chips. I called 2 friends I'd ignored. They answered. We drafted a boundary agreement with Carter's help. I would not sign, secure, or conceal any debt for Richard. Any assistance would be in kind and documented. Any communication would include at least one witness: Lena, Aunt May, or Carter. Carter added a line. If Richard enters a treatment program, support may include transportation and groceries, not cash. He handed me a pen like a promise. Aunt May taped my boundary list to my fridge like a kid's art. Rules are love dressed in work clothes, she said. Lena, shaking but straighter, signed her own list. No borrowing from Dad. No accepting payments from shell entities. No more pretending gala smiles or sanity. I took Mom's flight to Sarasota and ate toast at her small table while pelicans sailed past like slow thoughts. We called her attorney on speaker and set up alerts on the condo account. Mom listened and then said the quietest sentence. Thank you for letting me be small. I told her small kept her safe. Not every life needs a lobby. When I got back, Richard called from a number labeled driver. His voice was frayed silk. Let's reset, he said. I need groceries. I brought him groceries and a list of phone numbers for clinics. He threw the list on the counter and thanked me for the milk. I left the milk and took my boundaries with me like oxygen. And then the court date for the foundation misuse landed on my next day off. The courthouse smelled like floor cleaner and paper. The judge read through the foundation charter, the misuse affidavits, and the bank's memo. She ordered an independent audit and removed Richard from the foundation board, pending full review. It was a sentence that sounded like the first honest applause of his life. He didn't look at me when we left. He stared at the lobby where his name had been printed on past programs. Outside, Aunt May squeezed my shoulder. Lena stood with her hands in her pockets, hair down for the first time in weeks. I'm not angry, she said softly. I'm relieved. We walked to a diner, the kind with cracked red booths and coffee that tastes like persistence. We wrote lists, sell the mansion, negotiate the debts through Carter, set up a modest apartment for Richard if he agreed to treatment, pay vendors directly when possible, shield Mom's condo at all costs. My captain called and offered a temporary day shift to help me attend meetings, and I took it. At work, I still lift and listen. Faces blur, but hands don't. A woman squeezed mine after I kept her breathing through the worst 10 minutes of her life and said, "You look tired." I told her the truth. I'm learning to be proud of small. She nodded like that was a kind of rescue. If you're watching this because someone you love is a storm in a suit, here's what helped. Write everything down. Keep copies. Loop in one honest professional. And make your rules before the plea arrives. Help with receipts, never with secrets. Remember that love can be steady without being a spare wallet. And that dignity is quiet but stubborn. One hopeful image. Aunt May's lemon tree catching morning light, while Lena plans a job that doesn't require applause. One practical takeaway. Freeze the assets at risk, notify lenders in writing, and never cosign under pressure you'd never accept for a stranger. I went home and slept on clean sheets and didn't dream about lobbies. And I woke to a new voicemail from Richard saying he'd finally chosen help.